You're listening to the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Billy Z.
And I'm Steve Morey.
And Comic Book Bears is a bit of a misnomer on this episode. Let me break it down for y'all. We don't have Brother Bryan with us. Bryan is right now, as we speak, at the moment that we are recording this, right this second. He is in transit. As many of you know, he's really into curling. He's going to a Bonspiel in Tampa, is it? Do you remember where he's going?
I think so. I want to say Tampa.
Yeah. So we don't have Bryan with us. We were initially going to record an episode that was specifically about Doomsday Clock at the 6-month point. Well, at the 6th issue point, at the halfway point. Halfway through the clock. Think of the imagery. Love it. And we just weren't able to coordinate given our schedules to do that. But that will probably be the next episode or the episode after that. We really want to get that out to you. I had some problems with my DCBS shipment. I was shocked that they did not get it out, even though we had a 5th week that I couldn't get it last weekend. And so when I came home from traveling for work, I'm one of those people that splits on Monday morning, hotels it, and then comes back on Thursday night. My DCBS box was waiting for me. There were various other boxes and stuff waiting for me. So it was like this mini geek Christmas when I came home tonight. But that means I don't have any time to read the comic books that I want to talk to you people about.
And you get basically an entire month's worth of books in your DCBS shipment.
Even more this time because they had a 5th week that wasn't really a 5th week. With it falling on the 1st of the month. So there are some titles I have 4 new issues of.
Oh, jeez.
4 new issues of Injustice, 4 new issues of Harley Quinn. Some of that I think was because they were short on the last shipment, so they came to this one. But still, it's like 4 new books, 4 new issues of a particular book. That's a lot to get through.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to be reading a lot this weekend if we do have that storm that they're talking about, because I tend to go outside and enjoy the sunshine, unlike Steve.
I'm an indoor kid. I enjoy the indoors where the sun's evil rays cannot puncture my or touch my porcelain skin.
Yeah.
I'm scary white.
Steve has like goth skin. Whereas I am a former lifeguard, not bragging, just a fact. And I like being in the sun, being in the water, and, all that shit. So why are we even talking about this? Anyway, I may be able to read comics this weekend if we do have storms.
I think all you did, you mentioned that so everybody who's listening could just like picture you in little red shorts, at the pool.
Well, let me tell you.
Swinging a whistle.
Let me tell you about lifeguarding. I think I talked briefly about this. Maybe it was a wolf of the week, but a teacher who I was very close to when I was growing up was Bill Molnar. He died this past November, unexpectedly. And part of the grieving and discussion process, I ended up seeing pictures of myself that I have not seen. It's wild looking at a picture of yourself that you didn't know existed. There was one summer I was like super fit. I had somewhat of a swimmer's body. And then my last summer lifeguarding, there's one picture of me sitting up in the chair and I look like the Buddha. It was sad. And then I lost weight again, and then I lost weight again. Yeah, I know some people like a guy with a little heft, but you got to be healthy about it. I'm particularly concerned about a friend of mine who's become a gainer. That's a discussion for another time. But have you ever had that, Steve, where you're looking at a picture of yourself that you didn't even know existed?
Yeah, that actually has happened a couple times. And of course there's the really embarrassing type, back in high school I had one like picture of myself. We went on a big trip to New York. It was, I forget which ferry we were on. We were on one of the ferries, probably going to Ellis Island or something like that. Cause of course it was a school trip.
Yeah.
And somebody had snapped a picture of me, and I was what some might affectionately call in my junior year of high school a pizza face. Had the worst acne humanly possible.
I still have acne once in a while.
No. We're not talking like adult acne where there's like a couple things here.
Oh, so it was like face. You were a crater face.
Oh, my entire face.
Yeah.
Well, no craters, just
Oh.
let's just say like constant
Oh, poor thing.
breakout.
Poor thing.
It was pretty awful. So I was on tetracycline and retin-A and
Yeah.
all that crap that basically destroys your skin. On top of trying to quote unquote heal you, it
Yeah.
always makes it worse. So yeah, somebody snapped a picture of me, and my teacher had collected a bunch of pictures and was handing them out to the students. She handed that one to me, and it's like, oh, here's a picture of you that you can take home or whatever. And it was me sort of smiling with beautiful blue sky behind me, Ellis Island, Statue of Liberty, or whatever. I don't know. It was something in the background that was very touristy and cool. And there's my big cratered pizza face, and I'm like, nope, thanks, trash. But mostly, like, I don't know. I know people have, like, old pictures of me somewhere because I am terrible at taking pictures of me, but other people are great at taking pictures of everything.
Mhm.
I'm sure that there are tons of pictures out there that I've never seen, but whatever. Facebook, tag me.
Okay. All right. So we went off on this stupid lifeguard acne tangent. Sorry about that, folks. It happens. Every show has a lifeguard acne tangent. Uh, so anyway, not necessarily as a form of protest, but as a form of necessity, we're not going to be talking about comics on this episode.
Nope.
We do want to stress to you people that we do enjoy other forms of entertainment. And so what we're going to do with this episode is we're just going to take you through some of the other things that we've done over the past few weeks and months. There's certainly been a lot of TV we've been enjoying, movies we've been enjoying, a lot of movie news that we think is fairly important in TV news. We're in the summer season, so that means concerts. Steve even went to a couple of concerts,
No
sometime.
shock.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about some of that. I went on this crazy DVD Blu-ray shopping spree that had to stop tonight because it was getting out of hand. We can talk about some of my acquisitions. I don't know if you have something to add to that. There's been some developments in the toy world that we want to talk about. So this episode's going to be one big Woofs of the Week episode. So we're just going to give it a title of what we woofed on our summer vacation, or part one, if we have to do this again, because of the
Exactly.
non-access to comics. So, and since this is a little bit of a different episode, we're also going to shake it up here a little bit. I tend to be, Steve, what's the word? Bossy, right? So Steve's going to take the
You say
reign.
it like it's a
Yeah,
bad thing.
I know. Well, like you said, like the belly. Some guys like that. I know many guys who like that, but that's not a role I always fill. Let's put it that way. Okay, I'm not always bossy, but I have a rep. Uh, so I'm gonna let Steve take the reins and take us through the various topics. I'm probably gonna still be bossy, but we'll see how it goes. This ought to be a lot of fun. This is gonna be a very loose episode. If you came in, downloaded, and wanted to hear comics talk, we are not offended at all if you want to skip this episode. But if you want to listen to some of the other things that we're digging and get to know us a little bit better through that process, which always happens when we go on these strange, formless episodes, please stick around. Love to have you for the next hour and a half or so, or however long we're going to be talking. All right, Steve, let's start it off. What do you want to talk about?
Well, we always kind of like talking about anything that's connected to comics, and of course, movie and TV news. If you've listened to us before, we do talk a lot about that at the top of the show. And I wanted to definitely bring something up because it's very recent. It's still pretty fresh in the past couple of days. But it's something that obviously we've been talking about for the past several months since they announced the theme of this year's CW Arrowverse TV show crossovers, and that is that Batwoman somehow is going to be introduced and integrated into the Arrowverse, which is super exciting because with Batwoman comes all the other Bat and Gotham related things potentially. Nobody's saying 100% for sure that we're going to start seeing Batman and Robin and, Batgirl and Catwoman or anything else related to that in the Arrowverse shows, but Batwoman is a huge step for that.
Mm-hmm.
They've already hinted a couple things here and there. Supergirl's made a joke about Superman hanging out with that crazy vigilante in Gotham, and of course Bruce Wayne's been name dropped and things like that. But this will be the first, real footstep into the Bat family.
Mm-hmm.
Other than villains. I mean, obviously Arrow is Batman light when it comes to some of the rogues gallery that Batman has, making very strong appearances. Ra's al Ghul, of course, Talia, etc. in Arrow. However, one of the things that's been kind of uncertain up until now is who Batwoman would be portrayed by. They had not yet cast it when they first announced it. There's a lot of speculation, especially around SDCC, who would be able to step into this role. I'm sure everybody had their own fantasy casting. Anybody with red hair was probably top of the list for most people. However, they just announced that Ruby Rose is going to be the new Batwoman. And Ruby Rose's Kate Kane makes a lot of sense. She ticks a lot of boxes as an actress, and she ticks a lot of boxes as as somebody who could portray this type of character. She's been in several action roles in action films. You might have remembered her as one of the assassins, mostly a silent assassin in John Wick 2, where she shot a lot of guns. And then also she was in the latest Triple X with Vin Diesel. She was also in Orange is the New Black as one of the love interests / tragic druggy stories a couple seasons ago. So she is an out lesbian. She's Australian, so she has that accent, but also is good at, like a lot of Australian actors are very good at sort of changing it to an American accent, so I don't think that would be an issue. And even if they did make her Australian, they could easily explain it away because that's the magic of TV. And she can always wear a red wig. Now, of course, we do want to make sure that the red wig doesn't turn out being another Medusa-type failure from last year's Inhumans, but thankfully this one doesn't have to be alive and holding things. It just has to be beautiful, red, luxurious, and striking. And I have no doubt that she is going to fulfill all of the characteristics of Batwoman / Kate Kane. Also interesting, at the same time they announced her, her casting, is that we're also definitely getting a pilot episode. At first they were sort of, a yes or no about the series, but they're definitely making the pilot episode. So it's not just going to be a backdoor pilot, like we've seen The Flash in the past, but they're actually going to have a real full pilot filmed after they film the crossover. Whether this blossoms into a full series, or if they'll just have to integrate it as sort of like a, maybe a special episode, or maybe it doesn't go anywhere. Who knows? We have to see how popular it is. I'm hoping, I've got great hopes for it, especially now with Ruby Rose as the cast as Kate Kane. But I'm super excited for this, and I know a lot of other people are. I think it's great for LGBT representation as well, and the Arrowverse has a lot of great gay characters that run the gamut from campy to serious to, big action to romantic, etc. But this is really cool because this is one of the highest profile gay characters in comics, whereas the other gay characters in Arrowverse have been kind of, either minor characters in the comics or have been more or less created for the shows. So this is a pretty big deal. Yeah. Bill, I don't know. What do you think about it? What do you feel about it?
Well, of course, there's people on the internet.
The
that
internet?
Are just chomping to find some backlash on this. And some of the most ridiculous claims. Apart from Orange is the New Black, basically most of her prominent roles have been action-based. Oh, she's from Orange is the New Black. That's not an action show. Okay. She doesn't have a Jewish background. Folks, hate to tell you, but Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart aren't really mutants. It's called acting. So just, it seems like, this was a situation where I don't think, let me put it this way. I'm glad that they have an LGBT actress in this particular part. I don't think it was requisite, but I think that that's a whole other show. But I do think that they really hit a lot of the marks that they should with this character. The thing I hate about social media is that this invented outrage. There's really not a lot that you can diss about this casting,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I mean,
strange,
unless you're just against. I mean, there's obviously the people who are
if
against
she
the
doesn't
idea
have the
of
acting chops, that I can understand.
Yeah,
If
I mean, she is going to be spending a lot of time in a mask, most likely.
Yeah. Oh, another backlash is because she's a very prominent vegan and because she is a very strong voice in Australia for animal rights, that they can't reconcile that she may be wearing leather-esque clothes. I'm sure they will make a pleather
uh,
exemption for her. I'm sure they will make a pleather outfit. Don't worry.
yeah,
Um,
there's a lot of fake leather material out there that looks just like the real
yeah.
leather material. I
And the
mean,
interesting thing is the complaints that I saw about that did not come from the animal rights community. It's just people just desperate to complain about something. Shut up.
yeah, I'm sure there's also a lot of
Oh,
sarcastic kind of things. So like, I'll make something up to complain about that.
yeah.
I'm sure
So
these
she's not a
people,
redhead. Oh, that'll be
these
good.
people
Yeah.
or those people will complain about.
Yeah.
So I'll just get ahead of that.
She's not a redhead.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Jesus
We'll
Christ.
see. I mean, here's the other thing too. Like, I'm really excited for it now. But if she's bad in the role, she's bad in the role. But that's, I mean, we're looking at November before we'll know for sure. So we got a good 3 months until the crossover hits. So I hope it goes well. I hope the pilot that they film ends up being exciting and they can pick it up. For 2019, I think it'd be a great addition to to the Arrowverse, and especially because with the Arrow pretty much on its way out. I know that they haven't said anything, implying that they want it going past season 7, but if it doesn't, Batwoman would make a great vigilante replacement. You still have that vigilante show with somebody who's non-powered as in the lead role, that could kind of fill those roles, and especially if they bring it to Gotham, because that would be a great segue to really bring up Gotham and see another version of the Bat universe without having to rely on Batman. I mean, Supergirl does an amazing job. Superman's out there. Clark's, out there. He's made a couple appearances, but it's not important for him to be on the show. He's there, but Supergirl's is front and center, and here's an opportunity for Batwoman to be front and center, even if there's a Batman out there running around with the Joker.
And we also have had comments from more than one CW executive very recently saying they have absolutely no plans to whittle down the Arrowverse too. Of course, it's going to be dependent upon what the ratings terrain looks like at the end of the season, especially with a network which has expanded to 6 nights and potentially will expand to 7 for the 2019-2020 season. There's more to fill. And at this point, as we've talked, Arrow is the lowest rated show in the Arrowverse.
Yeah.
7 years is a very healthy run. Is a very healthy run for a show.
It's gotten over 100, so now they can go to syndication, whatever that means anymore.
Yeah. So I watch everything. So we'll see how that transpires as we go through the season. And I did also think that the pilot announcement was interesting because it's cheaper to do backdoor pilots, so they must really have faith in this.
Yeah, I think and that's kind of why I'm thinking, unlike the Flash, where they had to introduce Barry sort of within Arrow and kind of see if maybe the character works, and maybe see if Grant Gustin would work in that role. That's good. And obviously, my original thought was that's exactly how they were going to bring Batwoman in. They're going to see how she interacts with everybody, how, the casting of whoever that actress would be, how they fit, with everybody else in the cast. But having a pilot means that they can actually create something that's wholly around that character.
Mm-hmm.
So whether we ever get to see it, which, I hope we do someday, or not, that would be a really great way for them to just focus 100% on Batwoman without having to rely on anybody else, which is, I'm excited. I'm excited for that.
And something else that I think that has to be said is Batwoman has a really robust supporting cast in her book between her father and her sister. There's a lot of storylines that could be generated that would be very TV poetic, I think.
Yes, and she also has, I think, for general TV audience a lack of familiarity that allows them to be a lot more flexible in what kind of stories they throw in. Obviously, they can bring in a lot more Batman stuff and Gotham-related stuff that everyone kind of knows about, tangentially through the movies, through Batman 66, through, the comics. If they'd never read Batwoman, hey, you probably read Batman comics and you know of her. But there's a lot of potential there. So it'd be really exciting and a great expansion. So, but speaking of expansions,
okay. Whoa, what a segue. Oh,
yeah.
Beautiful.
Another huge expansion and a huge, I don't even say announcement, because we've known about this for months and months and months, but it's been kind of teetering on the edge because of, a rival Comcast trying to butt in here, but is of course Disney and Fox Studios and the Fox channel, obviously. Not Fox channel, but,
there are some breakaways that are going to be,
and their properties, merging now. Which it is official. They did accept it. Shareholders are all good with it, and it's good to go as long as there's no last minute, federal interference. But that means that the X-Men and Fantastic Four and all related properties are coming home to Marvel Studios control. Disney / Marvel Studios control. And that could potentially mean, and of course, what's his name? Oh my God, my brain just. Oh, Mabel.
That's a private joke. We'll have to fill people in at some point.
Bob Iger, I guess.
Bob Iger.
And Perlmutter, actually.
Ike Perlmutter.
Ike Perlmutter, just the other day had mentioned, because somebody did ask him, of course, and Ike's not one to shy away, did mention that, yes, they do have plans. Who knows what those plans are, but to bring, for sure, the X-Men and Fantastic Four into the MCU, which right there, that's, if he says it, then it's definitely going to happen some way, or other. Maybe when Feige gets his hands on it or whatnot. But, for me, the comments there pretty much solidifies what a lot of people have been kind of speculating over the past several months of, well, what could they potentially be doing with what's currently out there, the current film series. So if you've been watching the X-Men movies since the original X-Men back in, 1999 when that came?
Yeah.
2000?
99 or 2000. I definitely watched the first X-Men on September 11th. So, yeah. I don't want to look at the dates, but around that time. Yeah.
Well, almost 20 years. Yeah. Even though they've done a lot of weird, bizarre retconning and playing around with timelines and stuff, technically, they're all connected.
It's also, I think, especially with Logan, they gave a very convenient endpoint.
They did.
For that iteration of the X-Men.
They did.
It is a bit complicated now because you have two films that have basically finished shooting in the New Mutants and Dark Phoenix.
Although they did just announce that Dark Phoenix has another 3 months of reshoots that is happening, starting in August.
So I guess that rumor that it was going to be shelved is bullshit.
Well, that was some random anon comment somewhere on Reddit that's, whatever.
Yeah, that just took life.
Must have been a slow news day. And I think the way that they have them timed is that, even if Dark Phoenix ends up being the last of I'd say the Fox Studios vision of X-Men. If Dark Phoenix is the last one of that, one, it's a great story to end on.
Yeah.
We already, and like you said, Logan already exists out there, so that there is an end, that's already been created, an end film that was already created, of a sort. But it comes out and everything is basically done right before Infinity War Part 2 or Avengers 4 or whatever they're going to be calling it. Which, with the potential for bringing in, the X-Men and Fantastic Four franchises already more or less being answered by the company now, that would be a perfect time in remaking the universe, because they're going to have to with all those other contracts ending with the big players.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be too scared about those contracts, because there are many actors who said they'd be very happy to re-up on an individual film basis.
Oh yeah,
I wouldn't get too crazy about that. It is very clear that Chris Evans loves being Captain America.
Oh yeah, and
so I wouldn't get too nervous about that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he's going to be making appearances for the next, 10, 20 years as Captain America. And
Dave Bautista was some of the goings on with James Gunn. That's another thing, but I wouldn't get too worried about that scenario just because people are ending their contracts, which were huge. I mean, some of these actors had 7 films under the commitment,
which is crazy. We haven't seen contracts like that since the 40s.
It's a studio system. It seriously is. With the caveat that they can do other things and not just be Captain America or Falcon,
And they don't get a weekly rate, and they don't have all the Hays Code and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I think the next Avengers film is the perfect area to introduce elements. I don't want to say everything, but elements, and it can just be the X gene and cosmic rays. I still think a beautiful coda to end on, if you are going to incorporate elements from the properties that you're now acquiring, Silver Surfer and Galactus. Just seeing the Surfer, in the bumper, that's perfect.
Well, I mean, you have to figure out, like, basically for the past 10 years, the mid-credit and end-credit, post-credit teases have been Thanos related.
Yeah.
In some form or fashion. Not all the movies, but in many of the movies it's been Thanos related. Well, Thanos' story, or at least his arc as a villain, is going to be ending in the next movie.
Yep.
Or
is it?
Well, it'll be done. It'll be done. Like they might bring him back at some point in time for some other role, like they have, over the past 20 years with Starlin, making him a sometimes hero, sometimes not, whatever. But at the same time, it's, there's the big bad. Big bad is defeated. We all know he'll be defeated by the end, or something will happen and he gets taken off the board. That's the perfect time in the post-credit sequence. Who should be flying by? The Silver Surfer, or hey, what's that giant hand picking that planet up and munching on it? Like, I don't know, something that would be, Silver Surfer Galactus related, I think would be a perfect continuation of the big bad, or maybe the Turtles or something. I don't know. Well, I'm sure they have it mapped out. I'm sure they have their next 5-year plan for Phase 5 showing up somewhere. But yeah, cool. I'm really excited about it, and I think I know everybody is, and we're all going to be speculating like crazy over the next the next 8 months. So get ready. And wonderful art.
Yeah, and again with the speculation, like we had a situation today where they announced the casting of Cyborg as part of Doom Patrol, and of course it immediately went to Cyborg is Robot Man. Just wait and just calm down, folks. Seriously. And I know there's a lot of stuff that we haven't talked about on the show. We haven't talked about Ant-Man and the Wasp. We haven't talked about Teen Titans Go to the movies, which I thought was a joy. I could do a whole show on that. We haven't talked about the Titans trailer. Yeah, fuck Batman. We haven't talked about the Aquaman or the Shazam trailer or the Spider-Man. What's the animated thing called? The Into the Spider-Verse?
Spider-Verse.
Venom. There's a lot of stuff going on. We'll cover them in some form, but we have some more ground to cover. So just keep going. Okay.
Well, with all that stuff, let's kind of like leave that behind, because obviously, there's a lot more to say. But let's go back to what we're doing over our summer breaks. I mean, we're adults, we don't have breaks, unless we're teachers.
My summer break is September at this point.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah.
For all those teachers out there, yes, I am jealous. But one of the big things that tends to be a big thing, especially for you, Bill, is concerts in the summer. You see, I think, more bands than I think I've seen in my lifetime in the span of a couple months.
Yeah, I don't dispute that. The sad thing is, not sad, but the amazing thing is, I have two friends that put me to shame in that context. My friends Tom Moynihan and Andy Sava. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
Andy has the concert history I wish I had. He's 63. I mean, his first concert was Sly and the Family Stone. First concert. He saw Roxy Music with Brian Eno as part of the band. He saw Bowie at Carnegie Hall for the Ziggy Stardust. He estimates he saw the New York Dolls 30 times. It's just amazing. He has an incredible concert history, and Moynihan goes with the frequency I wish I could go right now.
Wow.
So I have friends that dwarf me in terms of concert attendance, but I go to a lot. And, we've hit the summer season and, basically every major and even I wouldn't say some minor markets have their amphitheaters and have their summer sheds. So that has been the majority of shows that I've seen recently. I saw the double bill of Pixies and Weezer. I've never been a big Weezer fan. I'm not a geek. Right? Like Weezer always seemed a bit too contrived for me. But they were fine. Pixies were not exactly in their element in an amphitheater situation, but it was a fine show. I went to see a local radio show with David Byrne, formerly of Talking Heads. Now, I'm going to reenact a conversation I had in 1983 with my best friend. Do you want to see the Talking Heads? They're playing at Forest Hills. Forest Hills Tennis Stadium, that's really hard to get to. Yeah, why don't we wait till next year? Yeah, we'll wait till next year. That run of shows, that tour, the Stop Making Sense tour, was the last time the band played, apart from their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we just said nah to the only chance we really had to see this band. So it's just one of those situations where I just never saw David Byrne live until now. There's a bit of since he has did the album with St. Vincent. He's been playing like arenas and 10,000 seaters. It's depending on the market, it's incredible. And it was a really good show. It was a really good show. Then I also saw, and this was just last week, the Smashing Pumpkins on their almost original band reunion tour. Now, I'm going to borrow a Karina Longworthism because I just love doing this. I saw Smashing Pumpkins in their original incarnation in the 90s, and also when Corgan and Chamberlain reactivated the name in the early 2000s. And there were times that I saw Smashing Pumpkins, and they sucked. Uh, I did see them in a very fairly small venue, the Roseland Ballroom. I saw them as part of the headliners at Lollapalooza the following year. At that time, I saw them at a stadium, and they never really connected with me live. The records definitely up until I guess Melancholy was the end of something, and I wasn't too impressed with the records after that. But Siamese Dream and Melancholy I thought were statements of their time definitely, but
Mhm.
but good solid records. So I didn't go out seeking tickets for this because on the care spectrum it wasn't very high. But then the aforementioned Tom Moynihan offered me a comp ticket to go with him to see it, and it was a really good show last week. Now, granted, I had one of the special anniversary shows. They're celebrating their 30th anniversary as the band started playing live, and their first demos were from 1988, so 30 years. We had special guests in the form of Chino Moreno of Deftones, Peter Hook from New Order and Joy Division, Courtney Love. It ended up being a really good show. Definitely the best I ever saw the band.
Hmm.
So I do give a recommendation, and I have a couple of other shed shows coming up. I have a very classic rock show in Jeff Beck and Paul Rogers and Ann Wilson of Heart. That's coming up this Sunday. I am finally seeing Electric Light Orchestra. Let me say that a little better. I'm not even going to edit that out. Electric Light Orchestra later on in August, and also Deep Purple and Judas Priest. So I have a run of classic rock. Still an indie guy, but getting some of the older folks in there. So that's some of the shows that I've been to lately. And Steve went to a show, and this is a very surprising show that I didn't go to, but we'll hear about his experiences at something. You actually went to another show too that I think you're forgetting about.
Did I? I can't
with the
remember.
lesbianarians?
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay.
Okay.
So I was wrong. I have been to 2 concerts, and in fact, they were a week apart from each other. I got to, and don't hate me, people listening. I've never been a big fan, not because I didn't like the music. I just, was never compelled to buy the albums, listen to a lot of the songs. I know most of the songs just through osmosis and, having friends, play it quite a bit in college. But the Indigo Girls, I got to see them for the first and only time in my life, and they were absolutely fantastic. It was a great venue. It was it was big enough to accommodate a lot of people, but not too big that you felt like you were that far from the stage. In fact, we had a perfect view of everything, and the ladies were great. I mean, I have to say, they put on a hell of a show, and of course, everybody there knows every single word to every single song, so you get that good feeling. And then a week later, we ended up seeing Culture Club and the B-52s in a double bill, big double bill. It was amazing. Oh, and
Triple bill there, son.
triple bill because one of the Thompson twins opened up. I can't remember which twin, but it was one of them. Yes, that's right, Tom Bailey. And it was and he was a lot of fun. Like, I didn't know that I knew a lot of the music because I'm not a huge. I love 80s songs. I love 80s pop, but I'm not the best at identifying everything. But it was a ton of fun. The B-52s were great. I mean, for the number of years that they've been playing, basically 40 years now, they've been putting on these amazing shows, and they still, draw so much excitement from the crowd. They do an amazing job. And then, of course, Boy George and Culture Club rounded out the night, and he is, if you have never seen him live, he's a joy.
Yeah.
He's funny. He's a great performer.
He's one of the best frontmen ever.
Oh yeah, well,
I would rank him in. Now, these are names that you would never put together, like David Lee Roth and Jim Morrison, but he is that level of charismatic frontman.
Oh yeah,
particularly live.
Yeah. Oh, he brings the audience along very clearly. Like, he's got the funny little banter in the perfect moments. He doesn't stand up there and just jabber on for hours, which, albeit, can be fun depending on the band, but he keeps it moving. He really puts his band and his backup singers front and center, at different times during the show, so that you can appreciate everything that everybody does. He's very gracious, and just a lot of fun to listen to and watch. And he looks pretty good with the beard. Anyway, yeah, those were my 2 concerts that I went and saw. Obviously it pales, in terms of volume, and they'll probably be the last concerts I'll see this year. I might get 1 or 2 more, depending if my husband buys tickets for him.
You might see something else. You never know what comes up.
Yeah, he's the one that gets us to out to see these shows. So, if it weren't for him, I probably wouldn't see many concerts.
Okay. And if people are wondering why I didn't see the New York date for this, my friend was having his birthday party. I'd already said yes. The tickets were really expensive. It was at the aforementioned Forest Hills Tennis Stadium, which is a bitch to get to. I had just seen Culture Club last year, so it effectively was the same tour. I've seen the B-52s many times. I saw Tom Bailey the first time he played in Ages as part of the Regeneration tour a couple of years ago. Don't diss me on that, please. I've done my time. Now, Steve was kind enough to set an agenda for this show, and I'm seeing here that he says best shows, worst shows, meh shows. So you want to know the best and the worst show I've ever seen?
Well, I'm thinking more this summer, what you've seen.
Oh, okay.
Because there's, obviously you've seen quite a bit, so there's got to be some, and I know you kind of touched on a little bit, that you were kind of disappointed with, and it sounds like that Pixies Weezer lineup was not.
Yeah, well, the thing was, I mean, it was a beautiful night. I'm sure there were people that had an amazing time. I've given Weezer a chance. They're just something I don't necessarily connect with. But one thing that was good about Weezer, though, was they dominated the early part of the set list with hits, so leaving early wasn't a problem. So I got Hash Pipe, I got Buddy Holly, I got Beverly Hills. They were all really early on in the set, so that was cool. I can tell you right off the bat the best and the worst shows I've seen.
Which one?
Right off the bat. Best show I ever saw aesthetically was Live Aid. I went to Live Aid, the Philadelphia show in 1985. The best show in terms of my enjoyment of it was Elvis Costello and the Attractions in 1986. This was just before where the Attractions split up, and you had a gap between 88 and 94, where Elvis Costello was playing with the Route 5. There was no Attractions. And there was a lot of tension, and you could feel it. And sometimes when there's tension between band members, it makes for a fantastic show. So it was really good. Man, they were pulling covers out left and right. ABBA's Knowing Me, Knowing You, John Lennon's Instant Karma. Just an amazing set. It was just a night where everything was in alignment. My worst concerts. In terms of an experience, it was Soundgarden. In 1994 at the New York Armory, the temperature inside the venue was 102.
Ugh.
It was an awful, awful experience, and it was also the night of the O.J. Simpson Bronco chase, and I really wish I was home. And bands that played were bands that I liked, Soundgarden, Tad, 11, but you can't enjoy yourself in that level of heat. But that's the feeling. The worst act I've ever seen live was I took my father to an oldies concert, and the headliner was Bobby Rydell, who was a teen idol in the early 60s, pre-Beatles. Bobby Rydell is the vanguard by which all other acts I see live will be measured because it was a train wreck. It was the most egregious example I've ever seen of cashing a paycheck. He didn't care that he was there. He didn't care he was getting lyrics wrong. When you watch a performer look at his watch, you can suspend that activity for a little while, So those are my best and worst. So what were your best and worst?
Oh, goodness. I haven't seen a huge ton of concerts, and I have to say, probably my best one might have been one that was unexpectedly good. They went in a completely different direction than I thought they would. And when I was in high school and in college, I was a huge They Might Be Giants fan, and I still love them. I still appreciate everything they've done. But I went and saw a concert. I want to say it was 2001, maybe 2000. And, I was expecting them to do some of their some of their recent album work. They were playing Toad's Place in New Haven, Connecticut. And
I've been there.
It was a frequent stop for them.
I've been there.
It was such a great place.
Farmers there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was a lot of fun. I was there with several friends, and we're all pretty much the same group that went and saw them every year, at least once a year. And this time, John and John get on stage, and they're like, you know what, guys? We got a lot of new music out, but this just so happens to be the All Apollo 18 show. So they basically played the entire album in track order, including the 36 mini songs that they have as part of Fingertips. So it was basically the entire album live. It was perfect. And of course, for encore, they did some other hits, but it was
my favorite song of theirs is from that album.
Which one?
The Statue Got Me High.
The Statue Got Me High.
That's my favorite song of theirs.
Yes. Yeah. I can't sing, but and I also can't get that nasal. The
statue got me high.
Yeah, right. I can't do it. No. Now the worst concert. That's a tough one. I would say it is a toss-up. And it's not necessarily because the music was bad. The music was wonderful. Melissa Ferrick. I saw her at I guess it was a very generic looking venue, and I can't remember where in Connecticut it was. It was me and like I think 99% lesbians in the bar. It was it was great. I've seen her live before. I really enjoyed her sets. She was always really good. Well, she had just shaved her head. And like your experience, the temperature inside the venue got to such a boiling point because there was no airflow. The place was packed a little bit too heavy. And everyone was just sweating like crazy, including Melissa on stage without a headband and a freshly shaven head. So she spent the entire set with her eyes in extreme pain, covered, with constant sweat coming into her eyes. So she had to stop several times.
Yeah.
So she could get a handkerchief or something and go off stage and flush her eyes out and whatnot. It was just, it was too bad. I mean, her music was great and that was fine, but she was uncomfortable. Everybody there was uncomfortable. We all just wanted to go home and have it stop. And then, the other concert was, and I can't remember where it was. I think I saw her at the Webster, which was in Hartford. It's no longer there. Rest in peace. Kimya Dawes. She was originally of the, oh God, what's the band? The Two Princes band. The group that did Two Princes, the worst song of all time.
Spin Doctors?
The Spin Doctors. She was one of the, not the original Spin Doctors. After the Spin Doctors, the gentleman formed the Moldy, whoever the main singer was.
Peaches, yeah.
Moldy Peaches. And so she was part of that, with him. Well, she had her own individual solo album, and again, I'm sure she's a very lovely person.
I think
afterwards.
I think you're mixing up people.
Am I?
Yeah, because the other half of the Moldy Peaches was Adam Green.
Yeah.
And he's not the fella from the Spin. He's not Chris from the Spin Doctors.
Okay, yeah. But Kimya Dawson anyway, she was part of that group. So, but she got up there. It was all acoustic set, and yeah, I don't think people were really expecting her to just kind of have to stop playing a couple times because she got emotional. And I know she had a lot of issues and all that, but it does not make for a good show. When you're there to see somebody play that you kind of know about and kind of like, and then they just basically make a mess of it, and kind of have two songs, forget the lyrics, have to stop playing because, it's a sad song. It's just unfortunate. But I did meet her afterwards, and she was very sweet.
Yeah, I also want to say, though, for you, there is a Spin Doctors connection, because Chris Barron from the Spin Doctors did play guitar when Moldy Peaches reunited. So there is a connection that didn't come out of nowhere. God, we're talking about the Spin Doctors. Oh, my God. I did see the Moldy Peaches open. I have to go to the list. They either opened for the Strokes or the Scissor Sisters one time I saw, and they sucked.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not going to go and see somebody that I don't like or that I think will be not a fun time.
Yeah.
So, and even with Kimya Dawson, like, at the same time, again, she was very sweet afterwards, and I bought an album from her. Kind of was a pity buy, but whatever. She's been a part of some interesting things in history and some musical history, so why not?
Okay.
If you like her, you like her.
All right, Steve. What do you want to talk about next?
Well, according to my agenda here, there was I think some kind of shopping binge.
Oh my God! All right, I don't know what happened to me. I don't know what came over me.
You'd seen too many concerts, and you just needed to.
So I need to do too many of something else. I moved some DVDs and Blu-rays around. I just moved their location where I have them in the racks, and I noticed there was a couple things. More than a couple things that I haven't completed. I haven't completed my collections. So I tend to buy almost everything DC. I have almost everything connected to a DC-related movie or serial or animated show or live action. I get everything. I was looking at Beware the Batman, short-lived animated series from a few years ago. I had the first volume. I didn't have the second. Justice League Action. I have the first volume. Didn't have the very recently released second. So I pull out the Discover card and I get on the Amazon, and then I get on another site, and then I get on another site, and before I know, I have a stack of new stuff. Don't know what came over me, but let me give you the rundown of what I've recently got. So again, I have Justice League Action Volume 2. I never completed Young Justice, and again, I got a little bit excited with the Young Justice trailer that was premiered at San Diego Comic-Con for the next installment, Young Justice Outsiders, which will be part of the DC app. So I got the final volume of that. I got Teen Titans Go, Season 2, Part 1. For some reason, I have Season 1, Part 1 and 2, and Season 3, Part 1, and nothing else. So starting to fill that gap in. I've had this from a burn from a VHS copy, but they did put out a DVD of the serial of Black Hawk from 1952, so I got that. Batman Dark Justice, the Beware the Batman, I talked about that. A few months ago, I got, at a very discounted rate, Batman Unlimited, the animated movies based on that toy line. So I got Mechs vs. Mutants, the original movie, which was the third. And so I said, let me get the first and second. And this was one of those, should I get the Blu-ray? Should I get the DVD animated features? The only one I've ever seen that really made a big difference was Star Wars Rebels. So I decided to get the double feature of the first two films, Animal Instincts and Monster Mayhem. There's still more in the stack. We had very recently released videos, so I got the Blu-ray of Lego DC Comics Superheroes Aquaman Rage of Atlantis. And when I came home today, waiting for me was The Death of Superman, the latest DC Universe movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got some upgrades. If I see a Blu-ray for $5 and I have the DVD, but I don't have the Blu-ray for the upgrade. This is basically just films. I don't do this for TV because TV is too expensive. They call out to me. So I got a Blu-ray upgrade of Batman the movie, the original 1966 theatrical release that came out between the first and second seasons of the Batman 1966 TV series. I got the Blu-ray of V for Vendetta. I only had that on DVD previously. And I got an upgrade of Justice League Cosmic Clash, especially because it had the Cosmic Boy Lego in it, another installment in the Lego DC Comics Superhero series. If memory serves me right, I had the DVD of that, which they gave out as prizes at one of the screenings at the Paley Center of the Lego film. So I believe that's why I had the DVD and not the Blu-ray. But wait, there's more. I love a bargain. So it's not uncommon for me if I'm out on errands that I'll do a quick stop at Dollar Tree or do a quick stop at Five Below. And there is a situation right now at many of the Dollar Trees that they're getting some really interesting titles that sell through for $1. And over the last few months, I've gotten 4 of the Marvel Knights motion comics DVDs that came out from, what's that company? Shout Factory. So I got Astonishing X-Men Unstoppable, I got Eternals, I got Iron Man Extremis, and I got Wolverine vs. Sabretooth Reborn on proper DVD. I may have had those in another format earlier. Shh. And then also through the sell-through, I got 3 volumes of the Iron Man Armored Adventure cartoons. Yeah, so some comic book related stuff there, but not comic books because they're not talking about comic books on this episode. And I also got the Secret Saturdays. Steve, did you ever see that Cartoon Network show? Very much in a Ben 10 Venture Brothers, harkening back to an earlier time animated series of, specifically in this case, the more heroic animated Saturday morning features of the 70s and 80s about a family, like a quasi Fantastic Four situation called The Secret Saturdays, which I think ran 2 seasons, and I got some this or that. So if you're around the Dollar Tree, give a poke in. There might be something you really like there. I got some other stuff. Blue Jasmine on Blu-ray for $1. I got that. Yeah. The Laramie Project, that's been making the rounds at a lot of those. Borat, some good stuff. So.
Yeah, and that wasn't the only shopping spree you went on recently. Oh, maybe shopping spree is the wrong word, but
No,
recent
an expedition, I think, is a better word.
purchasing expedition is, yeah, that works.
An expedition to hope to purchase something.
And what pray tell could that have been?
Okay, well, if people follow the toy world closely, you may have heard that Mego, the company that was very famous for the world's greatest superheroes line and Star Trek line in the 1970s, the Micronauts. Famously, they did not accept the license for Star Wars, which, coupled with a bunch of circumstances, pretty much led to their demise. The son of the company founder, Marty Abrams, has started up the Mego Corporation again, and they are releasing a first wave of figures exclusively to Target. I'm going to name check some of our friends. How about we do that? Chris Cummins, I know he got the Tootie from the Facts of Life figure. Our good friend Tito is on a quest for the Jimi Hendrix. Some of the other figures, I forget what chick it is from Charm, but there's a Charm figure. Fonzie from Happy Days, the Bela Lugosi version of Dracula. Action Jackson, which is Mego's version of G.I. Joe. Uh, who else is in there? Alice from the Brady Bunch. It's a very eclectic grouping of these figures. Star Trek, as we had mentioned earlier, we're going to get to Star Trek a little bit and something else we're going to talk about. The original lineup of Star Trek's Mego line included Spock, what was that other guy? Kirk, Bones,
That other
Scotty,
guy,
and Uhura of the Starfleet members. So you never had a Chekhov or a Sulu. Now you have a Chekhov or a Sulu that you can buy. And because there's another company, Figures Toy Company, which is something that falls under a fairly broad umbrella called Remego, of these other specialist companies that put out Mego inspired 8-inch figures. They have the DC license for the 8-inch and the 12-inch figures. They don't have for the 14-inch figures. So with this wave came 4 DC characters in 14-inch figures: Batman, Harley Quinn, Wonder Woman, and General Zod. And I figured, I don't know how crazy I can go, especially with all the goddamn Blu-rays and DVDs that I bought. That I'm not sure if I can justify $80+ in buying all 4 of the figures. So I figured, let me get General Zod. Let me at least get General Zod, and if these things are still around later, fine. If not, I have other versions of those characters as an action figure in some form or whatever. But I wanted to get General Zod specifically. I actually have my original General Zod 12-inch figure from Mego and the 3 3/4 pocket superhero version of General Zod. I still have my originals. Not all my toys survived childhood, but those did. I could not find the goddamn figure anywhere. I went to 5 area targets. I know I'm very lucky to have 5 area targets that I can hit that are within like a 25-minute radius. Let's put it that way. But I struck out with Zod. I got Batman because I just didn't want to make this trip bust. But finally, on Wednesday morning, I'm talking to you Thursday night at the time we're recording this, they did provide on Target.com the ability to order all of the figures for home delivery. So I am looking at General Zod right now. I have a General Zod.
Yay!
And I have a Batman. So now I have 2. So then the collector gene is like, okay, well, let's figure out budget-wise when I can swing Wonder Woman and Harley Quinn.
Well, and if you want to hear more, actually, I did want to bring this up. If you want to hear more of Bill, talking about the joys of Mego, along with Chris Cummins, we do have some classic episodes of Comic Book Bears.
Yeah, we did have there's one episode that we called Tales from the Toy Box, I think.
Or Bears in the Toy Box.
Or Bears in the something like that. And we specifically talk about that. And Chris and I have done live shows in the past talking about toys in conjunction with New York Comic Con. We may be doing something with Keystone Comic Con. I will have an announcement about Keystone Comic Con soon. Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah, Mego. Yeah, you were too young for Mego there, son. It's a shame.
Well, yeah, didn't they go
It's a
bankrupt? No, they didn't go bankrupt before I was born. I think they.
yeah, I don't know what the legal definition of what happened was, but they did, yeah, whether they went into receivership or whatever. But basically, by 81, they weren't releasing new toys, and by 83, they were selling off most of their
And
assets. Yeah,
and I
so
think Marty had a little bit of a vacation after that point
yeah.
in a not so pleasant area. But anyway, actually, speaking of, if you do want to hear more about that, that brings us to our next segment where we're going to talk about TV. Hopefully for not too long, because we don't want to go too long on TV. But one of the big shows that we've been watching, of course, has been Netflix's The Toys That Made Us. Season
Toys
1
that
came out,
made
I want to say,
us.
was it earlier this year?
I think it was late last year.
Late last
I
year,
believe
and
it was late
season
last year.
2 just dropped a couple weeks back. If you ever wanted to know the whole history behind, or most of the history behind Mego, they talk about it quite at length in the Star Trek toy episode, which to me was kind of a shocker. If you saw anything in the first season, they have a whole episode about Star Wars toys and how much of a huge phenomenon that was, and how it put Kenner really on the map, made them a boatload of money, and of course, we're just highly sought after collector's items from the get-go. But Star Trek unfortunately didn't have the same success right away. In fact, had a really poor control over their licensing, where it pretty much was just Mego for a while that was making anything that was, even resembling Star Trek.
With the licenses they had in the 60s with AMT and Remco, they basically were just taking existing toys and plastering a Star Trek
Oh yeah,
sticker
like
on them.
completely
Yeah.
unrelated, ridiculous toys, and then just the backing cards and stickers and all that stuff were the only hint that you had that it was Star Trek related. But Mego, of course, once they started creating the action figures, I mean, they had the big 6, I think it was, so including Uhura,
And a Klingon. Yeah.
and a Klingon, so you
Yeah.
have one sort of enemy alien to take your Enterprise crew against. But it was pretty fantastic, and those Mego toys, of course, are instantly recognizable. Those action figures are just classic, and it is cool that they're coming back now. There are some other great episodes in the mix, especially in the second season. The first season, I think, hit the big ones. You got your G.I. Joe, Barbie, Star Wars, of course, and oh gosh, what was the other one?
He-Man.
He-Man, yep. And in the second season, they got some equally huge toy franchises. One of them, of course, being Star Trek, with where Mego plays a big part. But also some other interesting stuff like Hello Kitty,
Which still baffles me how that's a toy.
and it wasn't. That was the thing. It didn't start as a toy. It was just
That baffles me, how they characterize that as a toy. It's an amazing story,
oh yeah,
but I
it's
still
the
don't know how Hello Kitty is
merchandising.
a toy.
It's just a merchandising empire. You put Hello Kitty on something, or this design of a character on something, and there you go. Now, I think it became a toy when you kind of look at how it's being used, how these little things are used. Like, it's a lot of small toy things and accessories and whatnot that you can, and the plushies and whatnot. So I guess that kind of counts as toy-ish. Otherwise, if it's not a toy, man, it's hard to categorize. But yeah, and they also have, the Transformers, which is a really interesting story, and makes me, I didn't realize this, and I should have, as a kid, because I did have, some Transformers, but, in one of the year releases, they actually took Macross, or as we knew it, Robotech, transforming Valkyrie toys from Japan, just lifted them whole completely, repainted them, and called them Transformers, which, when I saw that, I'm like, what? And we didn't get Robotech toys like that? Come on, But,
Yeah, the Robotech toys that came out were like Matchbox
garbage.
figures, yeah, right?
Yeah.
They
I
were
mean,
like,
they were
but they were
tiny
like
and
dolls. They were like
Yeah.
like girls' dolls, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I know they had smaller figures, but the main ones that I remember, and again, this, I was not a toy person at that time until I realized how amazing the Superpowers line was. And yes, there was, someone who was a teenager and then in his 20s buying all the Superpowers toys, and I looked at Secret Wars, beside it. I also thought it was interesting with Star Trek to me, that's an interesting choice because not that it's not a great story, but I seriously doubt any kid has asked for a Star Trek toy in 30 years. It seems like that is a line that is entirely adult driven.
Well, and I think especially after the Star Trek TV series from the 80s and 90s, I think it's 100% gone to collectors only. In fact, that was part of the story about it, was that the company that had the rights leaned too heavily. I think, was it Galoob?
Playmates.
Playmates, yeah, because they had it from Galoob. Galoob kind of was like, this is garbage, and kind of let it go to somebody else. But they got too heavy into the collector exclusivity of it all and ended up busting after that. With the Star Trek license, it just was not going to sell for them anymore because people lost interest. But now it's just, I think McFarlane Toys has a line.
And Art Asylum.
Art Asylum. Like, I mean, we're talking stuff that is
and
not...
now Mego.
Diamond Selects.
Yeah,
Diamond Selects.
And now Mego. Yeah, that's right.
And
I
Mego
forget.
again.
Yeah, I forget that. It's
Yeah.
Diamond Selects.
I mean, it's not for people to play with. These are definitely for display only. And then of course Lego. That was another one that was interesting this season. Now they're really short, but what do you want to see for the next season? Because I'm going to assume they're going to keep doing.
Oh, I know what the next season is.
Oh, really?
It's a good season in terms of stories. Power Rangers,
yeah.
My Little Pony, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and wrestling.
The wrestling one, I think, will be fascinating.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, though, I have a friend of a friend who. I have a friend of a friend who is my friend is a big Hot Wheels collector.
Mm-hmm.
His friend is a massive Hot Wheels collector. Owning the first 16 Hot Wheels is kind of akin to owning a copy of Action Comics #1 in the Hot Wheels world. He has 14 of the 16. This guy's a massive Hot Wheels fan. And he was interviewed by the team, so I'm surprised. Maybe they were doing like preliminary interviews because it was a phone interview. It wasn't an on-camera interview with the producers of the toys that made us. So I was shocked that I didn't see Hot Wheels there.
But let's move on because we've got a lot of TV to cover. We might need to skip some of the things that we want to talk about,
or just talk about them briefly. Yeah.
Yeah, there was one big one that I know that you wanted to talk about. It's basically, I think you described it to me as your favorite show or a perfect show, just something that's sheer brilliance. And I have yet to watch more than the first episode.
Oh my god,
because I'm terrible. But and what show?
You who watch more TV than anyone in North America. Well, the show that Steve's talking about is a show that recently finished its run. With the end of its 6th season, and that was The Americans. If you're unfamiliar with the show, it's a period spy thriller series, but that really doesn't do it justice. It's set in the 1980s during the Cold War with a couple, Elizabeth and Philip Jennings, who are actually Russian spies who have been embedded in the United States since the mid-60s. Instead of going into the whole mechanics of the storylines, I think basically all people have to know is that, and again, given recent current events, it probably would have been great to have premiere this year instead of 2013. But again, 6 seasons is a very healthy run. Again, it's a couple that are living in the Northern Virginia suburbs of Washington, D.C. with their children, Paige and Henry. Their next door neighbor, who recently moves in the first episode, is an FBI agent working in counterintelligence. It has an incredibly strong supporting cast. One of the co-creators was a CIA agent, so some of the story elements come from things that really happened. It's a nice 80s snapshot piece. If somebody's in an episode that's set in 1982 if you're not going to be listening to a song that comes out 2 years later. It's remarkably, what's the word, faithful to the time period that it covers. Again, really, really strong actors. And there was one moment in the fourth season, and this is the only time this has ever happened to me, where I literally jumped off the couch. I could not believe what happened. It's rare that happens in any artistic form. It's such a well-crafted show, and the last episode had so much resonance for me because it very much is a Sopranos type of situation. These are not people you're supposed to care about, and you end up caring about them. You shouldn't care about gangsters. You shouldn't care about Russian spies, but you get swept up in their lives. And the last episode had so many powerful moments, and it was a situation where I watched it and I ended up watching the entire repeat that aired right after it. I had to see it again. It's a shame that we're losing this series, but it is one that never, to use the most overused TV motif, never jumped the shark. So the Americans, yeah, love it. Love
Awesome.
it. It shocks me that you haven't seen anything beyond the first episode.
Yeah,
You have to fix that.
I think it was one of those things where everybody loves a timepiece kind of show, and I think this kind of hit very early in the 80s Renaissance TV. Anyway, yeah, I mean that's definitely a good one for people out there who really like the premise. Yeah, at some point I'll watch the whole dang thing. But at least it does have an endpoint. So again, if you're one of those people who are like, oh, I can't get into a show if it could be going on forever. I don't want to make a commitment now, unless it's canceled. Well, this was not canceled. This one actually was given the chance to end it. So that's good. For mine, unfortunately, it was canceled. The show I'm going to talk about, but it was saved at the very last minute, and so we'll get a fourth season.
There's a lot of that going around.
Yeah, there's been a couple of those things. This is not Lucifer, like most people will probably be thinking, being a comic book show, but it is The Expanse, and I know I've talked about it before. I've hyped it up, but it is a glorious show. If you haven't seen it, I know Amazon Prime, if you're a Prime member. With Amazon Prime Video, they currently have, I believe, all 3 seasons that aired on Sci-Fi now streaming for you to get into. And it's one of those shows, the way that it is built, and I've tried to explain this to people who are into binge watching but aren't really sure what to expect in these kinds of, very high concept, especially sci-fi series. Is it something they're going to like? If you make a commitment for 13 episodes a season, where's the lull? Like, do you have to sit through a whole bunch of stinkers to get to the good episodes? Expanse was actually pretty good at that. They separated the plots in their seasons so that you basically got 2 halves to every season. There would be one main story that ran throughout the first and second season, one big sort of overarching plot. But the main plot that you would pay attention to, or at least I'd say the A plot, would last about 6 or 7 episodes. So that you could binge a half episode, or a half season, and still feel satisfied at the end of that 6 or 7 episode arc. So, it gave you an opportunity to take a break if you need to. Because it's high concept. It's very, there's a lot of intense stress that happens with this. I'm sure it's very similar to what you would see on The Americans in terms of like stressful situations that sort of go over several episodes. But yeah, I highly recommend it. And since it has been rescued, you don't have to worry about getting to the end of season 3 and just going, what? That's it? There is another season that is right around the corner. They are, I believe, producing it now, so it should be out in time for early next year. All released on Amazon Prime now. So give it a shot. It's definitely, to me, it's probably one of the most well thought out and great ensemble casts since Battlestar Galactica for me.
Okay.
In terms of sci-fi. So yeah.
So me, do you think I'd enjoy it?
I think you definitely enjoy the political bend to it because it does have a very strong political lean, or politics play a very strong part in this. So there's a lot of intrigue behind the scenes, but you also get down to the nitty gritty for the people who don't really give a shit about the politics, even though they are directly affected by it. Trying to survive and find things out on their own and try to kind of go around the big giant bureaucracies that exist in this world in the future. So it's very interesting. There's a lot of action for people who like action. There's a lot of intrigue for people who like intrigue, and there's a lot of really beefy dudes if you like beefy dudes. So it's definitely good. And badass women. There's a lot of badass women. But I really love this show. It is perfect for binging if you want to binge. Like I said, you can binge in chunks of 6 or 7 episodes at a time because that's kind of how they structure each season. So it's pretty great. So, and then that kind of brings us to our next series, which again, 13 episodes per season. They just finished the 2nd season, all on Netflix, which I haven't seen yet.
Which astonishes me.
I know, because when the first season came out, you and I were talking about this. It was like the day it came out, it was we watched the whole damn thing.
Mm-hmm. To the point that we were so into this show, with our friend Tito, we recorded a pilot episode about this show. We haven't named this show yet.
I mean, hey, we could still do it.
Glow. We could still do it. We'll have to budget time properly.
Well, and also I would have to finally see the 2nd season.
Yeah, you would have to. So the show you're talking about is Glow, which is a partially fictionalized depiction of the 1980s syndicated professional women's circuit, the gorgeous ladies of wrestling. It's rare that I'll say something was better than something. I don't tend to use that parlance a lot. This album was better than that. I might say I enjoyed it more, but the 2nd season of Glow was better than the first. And the first season was really, really fucking good.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to see this. You have to see this fairly soon, Steve.
Oh, definitely. I mean, just the story and the characters and just the great actors and the amount of care, I think, because as you said, it's a fictionalized retelling of the history of Glow, the gorgeous ladies of wrestling, but in that fictionalized retelling, they're using some of the same archetypal characters that you can recognize if you were a fan of Glow originally back in the 80s. Early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And it's very careful to depict them in such a loving way. Mm-hmm. Like, that the people who put this show together, and the actors who are on screen retelling these fictionalized versions of very real people are doing an amazing job because they love it. So, Alison Brie is basically I hesitate to call her the main star of this show because there's such a great ensemble.
Yeah, well, I think it's between her and Betty Gilpin. It's focused on those 2 women.
Exactly, and
to some degree with Mark Maron's character,
and some of the other characters, of course,
bit of a trinity, and there's more of that in the 2nd season,
where they have like certain characters have real focus episodes where it's about them. Yeah,
and the season finale on the 2nd season is possibly the best season finale I have ever seen. Possibly the best season finale I've ever seen.
Pretty high bar.
It hits all the notes you want it to hit, and when you see it, Steve, you'll understand.
Yeah.
It's joyous.
I cannot wait to watch it, and I just need to take an entire afternoon and just binge the whole thing.
Okay.
I've got 6.5 hours somewhere. I know.
Yep.
And then the next one, this is another one where I started watching and stopped watching the rest of the episodes, not because I didn't like it, but because there's too much other stuff going on. This was The Alienist, Bill.
Yeah. The Alienist is one of my favorite books, the original novel that the series was based on by Caleb Carr, which came out in 1994. It took 24 years for this amazing book to come to life either as a film or TV series. I wasn't as enamored of the TV series as some other people have been. There were elements from the book where the depictions weren't exactly as I pictured. Um, like, for instance, the actor who plays Teddy Roosevelt is way too good looking for Teddy Roosevelt. There's little things like that, but in terms of I mean, the costumes, my God, that's got to be a lock. I mean, poor Dakota Fanning, the shit they put her in. Um, but
Well, have you seen what other movies she's been in? They put her a lot.
Okay, so just for background, what this is about, and again, for people who are my favorite murder listeners, this is very murderino. Amazing cast: Daniel Brew, Luke Evans, as we mentioned, Dakota Fanning. It's a group of people in mid 1890s New York City, which is a world unto itself, as depicted in this particular series, who investigate a serial killer who is murdering what were known at the time as street urchins, very often boys that would dress up as women and hook. It incorporates some fact with some fiction. Teddy Roosevelt really was the police commissioner during this time. The Alienist, the name comes from a very early description of psychiatrists and feeds into, in some ways, the act of profiling. This group of people who get together in a sort of ad hoc way, try to find out like who is killing these boys. And I would definitely recommend reading the book. The book transports you. You know exactly what the streets of New York were like from the incredibly vivid descriptions that Caleb Carr provides. But the series does its own thing. There's points where it's a little bit draggy, but if you can't deal with draggy bits in a 10 episode series, you should be able to get over it.
Yeah, 10 episodes and 46, 47 minutes each. I mean, we're not
Yeah.
talking, HBO full hour, 60 minutes. So there's
Yeah, The Alienist.
cool. And actually, going from basic cable to pay cable and Showtime, where they don't hold back at all, mostly in the language department, is I'm Dying Up Here, which you and I both watched.
Hmm.
I think the whole of the first season and most of the second season together too.
Yeah.
We binged a lot of episodes while you were here in June for HeroesCon.
Yep.
This show is, I know we've talked about before, but it's basically at its heart the history of the stand-up comedian or the stand-up comic scene in LA, in Hollywood in the 70s. And it's a very interesting group of, I'd say it's a great cast. It's an interesting group of different stand-up comedians and, in different situations, all kind of thrown together, connected through Goldie's, which is the club where all of them work, ostensibly throughout the series. And, just the first season was all pretty much around getting to know who these characters are. They're all struggling. They're all sort of starting from the bottom, working their way up in a very competitive scene. The second season shows several of those different comedians now, meeting with some version of success. One of them becomes the breakout star in a sitcom where he's the big, breakout minor character that becomes a major character, basically the Urkel of the series, and what that does to his ego, as well as how it affects the people around him. And it's, of course, what you'd expect, not pretty. And then, of course, one of the other comedians who almost hits that success, but ends up through a series of problems that aren't necessarily her own, has a more tragic bend through most of the season. So there's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of tearful moments punctuated by some great one-liner comedy bits and really fun moments, mixed in with that drama. So if you like an emotional roller coaster, I'm Dying Up Here kind of fits that bill. And I don't know if it's been renewed for a third season, unfortunately, yet.
Yeah, that's been a frustrating thing with a lot of the shows we have mentioned right now. There's been no official mention of a third season of Glow. There's been no official mention of some sort of continuation of The Alienist. The book series that The Alienist is part of, you really can't go from that because the second book in the series, The Angel of Darkness, takes a very minor character in The Alienist and covers his life 25 years later.
Mm.
It's not really something that would align with what you expect a continuation to be,
Yeah.
like that. And Dying Up Here has not had a renewal announcement for a third season at this
Which,
point.
you
Yeah,
know, I can kind of understand. I know it wasn't Showtime's one of their biggest hits, so and given the the size of the cast and the quality, I have to say the quality of the time period presentation. I mean, they hit the 70s very well. The way that it's shot, obviously hair and clothes, and just you really do believe these people
yeah.
are living in that time. It's very cool.
Some amazing actors in it. The one that really knocked me out is Brad Garrett, who
Mm-hmm.
plays this veteran comic who's, basically, was sequestered in Las Vegas and
Mm-hmm.
his past is prime.
Yeah.
And it's interesting seeing him in what effectively is a dramatic part,
Oh yeah.
particularly
Yeah.
with his arc. And it's also, we mentioned this before, The Sopranos and The Americans. Some of these comics are remarkably selfish, shitty people.
Oh yeah.
Bill Hobbs is a piece of shit, but I care about him. I
Oh yeah.
don't want him to be a piece of shit. Even the character that you meant, Clark Duke, is Ron Shack.
Yeah.
You want to see him get out of this egotistical rut that he's in.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You
so
know.
it's a show about comedy that isn't always funny.
Exactly.
And
On purpose.
yeah,
On purpose. It's
and
not
I
always
I
funny.
really hope that there is a third. And again, you also have some actors come in and out for an episode. The pilot episode had Sebastian Stan as a stand-up comic, and what his arc provides is seismic to the storyline of the first season.
Yeah, it does
Uh,
provide that thread, I
Thread,
think,
yeah,
that connects
and
not just the comedians together story-wise, but also kind of the feel of the first season.
yeah, and he's excellent in that.
Oh yeah.
And Melissa Leo as
Mm,
the Mitzi Shore, Goldie is the Mitzi Shore analog. Just really really good, really good. I hope we get a third season.
yeah.
Really.
Well, going from a couple shows where we're not too sure if they're going to get a season, but we've been, hoping. We know, I think at this point, that this show is definitely getting a third season pickup.
Yes. Yes.
And it is what I would consider a superhero show without the trappings of capes and spandex. Well, actually, there's a shit ton of
There's a shit
spandex.
ton of spandex.
There's a lot of spandex going on. There's a lot of costume. There's a lot of color. Colorful kind of things like mostly nails, specifically claws. This show is insane.
It is. It's set in Florida, and it is the most Florida show you will ever see.
I wish that Brian were on right now so he could kind of just say, yep.
Yeah.
If you could hear a head sort of nodding enthusiastically, that's what he would probably be doing. The cast is stellar. Every single one of these people is alternatively the most wonderful.
I have to say,
that you're
I
looking
was
for somebody that you are just like waiting to explode off the rails.
I have to say, I was really disappointed from the first season that you did not see Niecy Nash or Carrie Preston nominated for Emmys. And going on one particular episode in the second season, Judy Reyes, my God. Oh my God. Oh, so good. So good. This cast is so good. But we're not telling people what it's about. Why don't you tell them what it's about?
Okay, well, the show is about a nail salon. Niecy Nash's character, Desna, runs a nail salon with her crew of colorful ladies who in their side job also operate as a money laundering front for Desna's boyfriend's Dixie Mafia style family's business of pills. Basically over the counter or prescription opioids. They have a clinic that's right on the other side of the parking lot where they, of course, are selling pills to junkies, and then, with all that money, they're laundering it right through the nail salon. And of course, Desna doesn't really like this. This isn't what she wants to do. She's never really had, any real criminal connection. Just so happens to be that through Roller, her boyfriend, and his family, she kind of got wrapped up in it, and so did the other ladies. Now, some of them, of course, have had some checkered pasts as well. Judy Reyes' character just got out of prison, and she's kind of the muscle of the group. You also have the character of Polly, played by, you just said her name.
Polly?
Yeah, the character
Carrie Preston.
Carrie Preston, who has also just gotten out of prison for, fraud schemes. And in the first season, she's got some beautiful ankle jewelry that she sports through several episodes. But it's very, it's kind of an interesting, precarious setup. And that's the first episode. And from there, it goes wild. There is, a murder, a possible murder where somebody comes back from the dead, but they're actually being kept prisoner by a very horny author. There's just all sorts of bizarre things that happen. You have a character named Uncle Daddy, who is, very out and proud bisexual with a coke nail and a live-in boy toy that he likes dressing up in thongs and all sorts of things that he and his wife pick out for him. It is fantastically crazy. And the second season is where it all blows up. And
it just never, it's like every episode, it's like, I don't think the show could get wilder, and it does.
And then it
without
does.
ever going completely off the reservation.
Oh yeah, there's no shark jumping here. And I think probably because the sharks are part of the show.
Steve, I'd have to say you did ruin an element of the show for me.
Did
I don't want to necessarily say antagonist, but for lack of a better word, which I've said like 3 times on the show, I don't know why. Zlata, who runs the Russian mob, or comes to run the Russian mob, and that's a whole other story. The actress who plays her is a German actress, Franca Potenti, and you mentioned that she's not doing a Russian accent, she's just doing a Carmen Miranda imitation, and that's all I can hear from now on.
I mean, she is. Watch any Carmen Miranda movie from the 30s or 40s, and then watch Franca Potenti, her portrayal of Zlata in the show, and you're like, yes, she is doing Carmen Miranda so well. She is doing a great job at doing a Carmen Miranda impression. If Carmen Miranda were a turn on a dime, violent and very, very confident and positive Russian mafia mob boss. But just everybody in this show is just, they are living their characters' best lives.
Yeah.
Any kind of bizarre dynasty level betrayal or twist, or crazy situation that you can think of, throw it in there and give it a Florida panhandle smudge. And that's what you've got in this show. It is absolutely fantastic. And speaking of Carrie Preston and Niecy Nash, I mean, they have done some amazing work over the past 2 seasons. There's a Carrie Preston episode, that also happened in season 2 that was great. It was unexpected and had a wonderful moment with a lot of feels towards the end. So True Colors, look for that episode. But I'm just like, if you're not watching this, you are completely missing out. It is wonderful and colorful and crazy and insane.
And very Florida.
Florida.
It is that vibe that you feel in Florida when you go past a trailer park and there's a Maserati parked outside one of the trailers. That's the show in a nutshell.
Exactly.
And where else are you going to see a country line dancing rabbi who becomes a stalker? Where else are you going to see that?
People getting shot. I think
people getting shot in very interesting places.
Shot, stabbed. I mean, like, I think there's been some accidental murders.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this thing has just gone wild and crazy, and you cannot.
And also, folks, keep in mind what you think is a nursing home. Oh, there's a lot going on there.
Ugh, it is so wild. I think this show has the potential to go for several more years, or
Yep.
basically until the cast decides they're done.
Yep.
I think this is one of those situations where, I mean, you can't run out of stuff to
No,
throw at this.
no.
They've already, gone past where a show ostensibly like this could go, and they've blown past that and just surprised us some more. So I think,
Yeah.
if Claws were a superhero CW Arrowverse show, it would be the best one.
My
Yeah.
God. Such a
I
great show. Such a
I
great
can't wait
show.
to binge it. Like that's the thing. Like I cannot wait the length of time necessary to be able to stack episodes. I have to watch it once I've got an episode up. So excellent. Well, I think we covered a lot
All right.
in
Well,
2 hours.
how did you enjoy kind of being in the driver's seat on this one?
It was good. I actually liked
Okay.
it. I liked trying to figure out a way to segue from one thing to the other.
All right. Well, keep it up. It's much easier on me and my friggin' life. So.
No, this was a lot of fun, and this is one of those great episodes where we've done a couple of these potpourri episodes before.
Yeah. I mean, we've done
with
the Star
bigger
Wars. Yeah. But they've also. We did have one episode where we just talked.
Yes.
Which was fun. We have the Star Wars episodes. I don't think are necessarily right in line with this. The Orlando episode again on a much more somber note. But no, I'm glad we did this. I really am because life ain't all comic books.
I know. Although
it's 97% of life, but it ain't all comic.
Well, I don't know about you, but obviously you just got that DCBS box pile that's sitting there going like, that's going to be 97% of your weekend.
Why is you open? It's not even open yet, and I've been home for 4 hours. How do you like that? Yeah, look at the good we do. All right, so we're going to wrap this one up. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, you can do so through iTunes and through Stitcher Radio and some other podcatchers. And if you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Billy Z.
And I'm Steve Morey.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion, and we'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Woof!